Hi, it's Jason from drpremed.com, and right now it's a very, very important time of year for pre-med students who are getting ready to apply to medical school. I'm going to share some stories with you and let you know what really goes on in the process of getting into medical school so you can become a doctor. Right now, you're about 2 weeks out because on May 2nd and May 3rd, AMCAS, if you're applying to the MD schools, and AACOMAS, if you're applying to the DO schools, they're going to start opening up so you can start working on your primary applications. And also with that, if you're going to submit letters of recommendation, transcript verification forms, you're going to need to do that with your primary application. So those are things that you want to start thinking about now and start working on now to make sure that you have a timely application for getting into medical school. There's a saying that the early bird gets the worm, and the same thing applies for medical school. Applicants who apply early and on time have a much greater chance of success of getting in medical school. That's just what it comes down to, and that's what the AdComs will tell you at all the schools is what they focus on, those early applicants, because they don't have to screen so hard. When I say screen so hard, it means when you're at the end of the application cycle, the school knows what type of class that they want to have, and so then they're going to be a lot more stringent on who they're going to admit because they need people to fill in those specific gaps that they're missing in their incoming class. And so that's just something that you need to be aware of. So it's always advisable and always best to apply early. Now the caveat with that, you don't want to apply early and have a bad application to medical school. You don't want to do that. So it's April right now, so you have time to get your stuff in order and make sure you're doing everything to be a successful applicant to medical school. Now here's something I want to tell you because I don't want it to happen to you. It happens every year around this time of year, unfortunately, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm going to try to inform you so that you don't become one of these applicants. So right off the bat, 60% of applicants to medical school, first-time applicants, are rejected. So you have a better chance of flipping a coin in the air and calling heads or tails than you do of getting into medical school. Very, very scary, but that's just the fact and the reality of it. And when you think about it, you have over 50,000 people applying to medical school. And so I was just working with a student on their application for medical school, and that school is going to receive over 6,500 applications for just 104 spots in incoming class. Another medical school on the East Coast, they're going to receive over 13,000 applications for only 150 spots. So it's extremely difficult to get into medical school. Now what I want to share with you about that is, what happens unfortunately is students will kind of reach out to me and they're saying that they're going through the process of applying to medical school and they might need help but they're not sure, and their fallback is, well, I have a relative who's a physician, it might be like a cousin or even an older sibling who's in medical school, or an aunt or uncle, and they just say, you know what, if I have any questions about getting into medical school, I'll just ask those people because they've already done it and so they can give me good advice. That's great if you trust those people, and I tell people you can go ahead and do that, but there's no guarantee that they're going to help you get into medical school, because you have to think about it. If they don't work with students on a constant basis, on a regular basis, they're not keeping up to date on what's required to get into medical school, what type of changes are occurring each year, and what AdComs are actually looking for that makes students successful for medical school. And I always repeat this over and over, so this is probably going to be my saying: a sample size of 1 does not give you good odds of getting into medical school. Just because somebody says this worked for me, so now I'm qualified to give you advice, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to follow that advice because it's going to get you where you don't want to be, and you might get rejected from medical school. So going back to this story, I had this applicant, kind of leery. They were from the West Coast. I think they had like a 3.8 GPA or something like that. Very decent MCAT scores. And they said, no, I'm going to just have some relatives help me out the application process. I'm like, are you sure? You really don't want to do that? But people, I can't go with people to do what they want to do. They're going to just do it regardless. So I said, okay, fine, go ahead and do it. And then he a little bit further into the application process, he then reached out to me asking for some questions or tips because he's like, I am not getting interviews anywhere, and so I've now added up to 40 medical schools that I'm applying to, and I'm concerned because nothing's working. And here's a piece of advice for you guys. You do not need to apply to 40 medical schools. That's kind of ridiculous and over the top. And what that says and how AdComs think about that are just generally speaking, when it comes to that many schools, if you have a bad application, just applying to more medical schools is not going to fix or solve your problem. You're going to just spend a lot more time and money getting more and more rejections because medical schools are looking for basic foundation that students need to have. Otherwise, they're not going to be accepted because there's just too many applicants. And when I say there's too many applicants, medical schools aren't looking for ways to accept you. They're looking for ways to reject you. There's just too many people who are applying, and so they're going to screen you by your GPA, your MCAT score, and then they're going to take a look at your personal statement, and if you don't make a connection with your reader, they're going to automatically toss your application just because there's way too many people that they have to get through and admit, and so they're looking for ways to reject you. And so later on, this applicant, and so I'm telling you a story from a year ago. This applicant came back to me, and it was, I think, in January or February, and he was like, Jason, I don't know what to do. I didn't get into any medical schools this year, and I'm just concerned because I really, really wanted to be a doctor. There's physicians in my family, and now I don't even know what my plan B is going to be to get into medical school and all of that. And that's just a situation you don't want to put yourself in, where you have all these high hopes, dreams, and aspirations of becoming a doctor, walking across the stage, getting your white coat, your stethoscope, family and friends are so proud of you, but then you go through the application process and you don't get in anywhere. You have absolutely zero acceptances, and so now you got to think about, what's my plan B? What am I going to do? Am I going to try to go to grad school? Am I going to retake the MCAT, or do I need to just reapply? These are three of the basic questions that you have to ask yourself when you get rejected by medical schools, and what are going to be your next steps. Unfortunately, all of this takes time, and what you have to realize, if you're rejected by medical schools, you need to make a significant improvement in your application to ensure that you have a better chance of getting in the next time around. You can't just go, oh, I'm going to reapply and not make any significant changes, because AdComs are going to be like, okay, this applicant is foolish. They're not really thinking critically. They're not thinking long term because they're just reapplying, and they haven't even taken the time to evaluate what potentially could have went wrong in their application that they need to fix, that they need to overcome to become a better applicant, a better candidate for medical school. And so those are the type of things that you need to do to get into medical school. Now, I had another buddy of mine from undergrad. His name was Peter, and he came to me because he was like, Jason, I applied at medical school 2 times already. So he went through 2 application cycles and did not get in anywhere. And I'm like, okay, let me see your application, Peter. Let me take a look at some things and all of this. And so like, okay, this is good. And then I asked a couple more questions, and I found out that he was getting invited to interviews. So that's a good thing. He was getting medical school interviews, but he just couldn't close the deal where medical schools thought highly enough of him to offer him a spot. And so I talked to him. I said, Peter, this is how you need to approach your interviews. This is what the AdComs are looking for. This is how you respond to certain questions. They're going to try to put you off guard with these type of questions, but just say this and do that, and just be very calm and just be confident in yourself. And so he took my wisdom, he took my advice, and all of that, and subsequently he got into medical school and is on his way to being a radiologist. So that just shows you what can happen. Somebody can go from applying 3 times, where the first 2 times they didn't get in, they decide to contact me, work with me. I fix what's going wrong with their application, have some insight on it, gives them some tips and advice. They follow it, and they get into medical school. They can live their dream, they can live their life, and do everything that they wanted to do, that they set out to do, to become a doctor, and then spend the rest of their lives a Dr. Peter in his case. And he's just taking care of patients behind a screen as a radiologist and all of that good stuff. And so what I want to tell you guys right now is that think seriously and think critically about what are your credentials, what are you doing to stand out, and how do you fare against the 50,000 other people applying to medical school? Because that's your competition right there. 50,000 other people. So in your little niche, in your college, you might be what they call like the top person on campus or whatever. People look up to you and they just have so much promise and potential for you, and they're going to, and family friends are going to tell you, you're going to be a great doctor, you're going to be a great doctor. That's all good and mighty, but how does that fix across the state and across the entire country for you compared to everybody else who's hearing the same things and is striving for the same goals as you? Medical school is extremely competitive. As one physician said when I was on my third year rotations and they had a daughter who was in a process of applying to medical school, they said the hardest part of medical school is getting accepted. And there's a lot of truth to that because it's extremely, extremely difficult to get into medical school. But once you get into medical school, it's extremely, extremely difficult to fail out and not earn your degree because there's such a rigorous process to ensure only the best applicants are going to be accepted into medical school because of the amount of dedication, time, and training that goes into making a physician. AdComs want to make sure that they're going to accept people who are going to actually complete the process, and that's why it's so difficult for you right now to get into medical school because it's an extremely rigorous process, and they're looking for people who are going to go through that process and also excel and show that they have promise and potential for medical school. And now, so I'm telling you all of this. You need to think about what you're doing, what you're not doing, and you need to get help. I'm Jason with drpremed.com, and this is what I do. I help students get into medical school. If there's a negative part of your application, my thing is we spin negatives into positives. We don't fudge the data, we don't make up things, but it's all how you position and how you present yourself. And there's a lot of room that you can work with once you already have a GPA that's competitive and a competitive MCAT score. Then it really comes down to your personal statement, what you're writing, why medicine, why you, what details and what impression you're leaving on the reader, and then in your secondaries and in your interviews itself, all of that, you need to give yourself a complete package where an AdCom can look at your application as opposed to the 10,000 other students applying to their school and say, you know what, I know exactly what this applicant's going to bring to our medical school and to the field of medicine. Let's go ahead and bring them in for an interview or offer them a admission spot. Now, if you have trouble doing that, then you need to reach out to me, Jason at drpremed.com, or visit the website and I can help you get straightened away for medical school for this upcoming application cycle, because really you need to be on top of your game by the time June rolls around, and right now it's already mid-April. So if there are things you're struggling with, things you're unsure about, get the help now, because you don't want to be like those other applicants who think they can do it on their own, who thinks they know better than others. And if you're not in medical school, if you're not a physician, then you're not where you need to be, and you need to reach out to people who have already done what you want to do and let them help you so that you can one day be a doctor, be a physician, and be proud of what you're doing and not have to think about what's my plan B. Now I have a year or two off and I don't know what I'm going to do. People are asking me questions and I'm really disappointed in myself because you didn't take the time now to get yourself a strong application for medical school. Now, this is Jason with drpremed.com. I'm going to sign off now, and you know how to reach me. And I don't tell people good luck in anything when it comes to academics or medicine, because it's not about good luck. It's about proper planning, proper preparation, putting in the time and work that you need to do to be successful at all levels, and that's what I want for you. So again, Jason with drpremed.com.